Well, good morning and welcome to Frankly Speaking, broadcasting live and proudly from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. I'm your host, Frank Acom, and we have a very busy show in store for you today. All 2 hours will be focused on so many various issues. One being, of course, yesterday's sit-down interview with the former president and Elon Musk. More of a conversation than an interview. I think it was very lengthy. I've not been able to catch all of it, but we do have some of the highlights we'll be discussing. A big, heavy focus this morning on media bias at a time when the Democratic nominee for president of the United States has not given an interview. I believe it's in 22, today going on 23 days, has not taken serious questions from reporters. We're going to say a little bit of what that means. Is the media going to call her out on it? Are they going to get upset? I think the answer is no, but we'll take a look. First, as an update, just a quick one on the Dolton Dictator, which I don't like that nickname as much. I like Super Mayor Tiffany Henyard out of Dolton, who has had just been embroiled by scandal. And the reason we bring this up is to highlight how important it is to know who you are voting for. This was a scenario where the people of Dolton made a big, big mistake as their coffers have been essentially drained. A top Illinois village police officer and a close ally of Mayor Tiffany Henyard was indicted on federal charges yesterday, though, to be clear, his lawyer argued the new criminal cases were only brought in hopes his client turns on the embattled municipal leader. Dolton Deputy Police Chief Louis Lacey was hit with a 9-count indictment for bankruptcy fraud and other charges after he was accused of scheming to hide assets and income to trick creditors and avoid paying a settlement tied to a past lawsuit, the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Northern District of Illinois announced. All right, so that's just another quick update because I like giving you updates on Super Mayor Tiffany Henyard. Okay, we're starting off with a bunch of updates this morning. RFK Jr. will not appear on the New York State presidential ballot. The courts have ruled that he is not a resident. I don't know if we followed this. I don't want to get too much into the weeds on this, but where he said his house was located wasn't really the case. It was a friend's house. It got really complicated. But independent presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. isn't a resident of New York and will not appear on the Empire State's ballot, is what a lower court in Albany ruled just yesterday. Justice Christina Ryba ordered Kennedy to not appear on New York's presidential ballot, a move that will likely lead to efforts to remove him from other state ballots as well. Quote, Kennedy's designation of the 84 Croton Lake Road address as his place of residence was a false statement requiring invalidation of the petition, she wrote in her decision. The Democrat-backed lawsuit, yes, it was actually Democrats who brought this against Kennedy, which goes again to prove, even though they've told us over and over again that he would actually steal votes from Trump, I think there's clearly a case to be made that he would affect the Harris campaign more. But the Democrat-backed lawsuit argued that Kennedy was a resident of California, despite listing a Westchester County home where he only stayed once as his address in election filings. Maybe he was he going to try to be a squatter? Quote, the overwhelming credible evidence introduced at trial established that Kennedy's connections with the 84 Croton Lake Road address existed only on paper and were maintained for the sole purpose of maintaining his voter registration and political standing in the state of New York. The judge wrote, the decision, which is almost certain to be appealed, could impact Kennedy's status on the ballots of other states as well, given that he listed the same address in all of his election filings nationwide. Think of the money that was spent, the time and effort to get him on these ballots. If he's kicked off throughout the country, wow. It could also further spell doom for his long-shot campaign's chances of securing an electoral college victory. Yeah. If Kennedy is ultimately found to be a resident of California where he lives and owns a home with his wife, Cheryl Hines, his ticket could be ineligible for the Golden State's electoral college votes. A quirk in the 12th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution bars candidates from receiving a state's electoral college vote if both candidates are from the same state. RFK Jr.'s running mate, Nicole Shanahan, is a California resident. Democrat Party-backed lawyers threw every bit of evidence at the court to try to prove that RFK Jr. was not a New York resident, including driver's license records, various licenses, and even a TikTok video of him feeding ravens. Quote, the courts are recognizing what voters are catching on to. RFK Jr. is a fraud. He knows he'll never have a chance to win, but he and his MAGA donors are attempting to mislead voters to sway the election to Trump, according to a statement by the Democrat-aligned group Move On. Kennedy vowed to fight the assault on all New Yorkers. The Democrats are showing contempt for democracy. They aren't confident they can win at the ballot box, so they are trying to stop voters from having a choice. We will appeal and we will win. He raises a good point. I mean, that statement in and of itself is not inaccurate. We know in the past they tried to keep Trump off the primary ballot. We know their own party has appointed a candidate for president on the Democrat ticket that never received a single vote from a Democrat for that position. Anointed, that was the word I was looking for. So I think his argument that Democrats are showing contempt for democracy is a fair point. They aren't confident they can win at the ballot box, so they are trying to stop voters from having a choice. Listen, they don't really even trust their own voters, as you can witness in the Bernie-Hillary race. So why would they trust any voter, no matter what their party affiliation? So I think his statement is not inaccurate. I wonder if there are some people out there that have contacted the program that are RFK Jr. fans. What are your thoughts this morning that he won't appear on the New York State presidential ballot? Now, again, it's being appealed, so there is still a possibility. It looks perhaps unlikely, but I'd like to hear your take on it. Also, did you ever imagine, even if you're not an RFK Jr. fan, did you ever imagine a time where Democrats would go against a Kennedy or the media would go against the Kennedy? To see that statement by Democrats calling him a fraud is remarkable. The Kennedys always protected, having a bubble around them. So it is really kind of fascinating to watch that. One of the other aspects of this presidential year that is so odd and so unpredictable. Now, speaking of New York, I do have two quick New York stories because I have a big update by Ricky Schlott that I think you're going to find really interesting coming up here in a little bit. But several New York Republicans are calling for the death penalty to be reinstated for the mastermind behind the September 11th, 2001 terrorist attack. Lawmakers such as Representative Nicole Malliotakis, Representative Mike Lawler, and Representative Elise Stefanik expressed criticism for a revoked plea deal between prosecutors and Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, the mastermind behind the 9/11 terrorist attack, and two co-conspirators. Quote, while we're pleased that Secretary Austin revoked this unacceptable plea deal, it has been 23 years since the worst terrorist attack on American soil, Malliotakis said. The family of 9/11 victims, the first responders, still suffering and dying today, and all Americans deserve justice. That's one quick update. Another quick update before we take our first break. We're going to go through a lot this morning because I have so much to focus on with media bias, but also I would love to hear your take on that sit-down interview with Trump and Musk yesterday. I know there was that technical delay, Musk saying they were hacked in a way, I believe by a foreign entity. We'll get to that a little bit later on, but what were your thoughts? It's such a clear contrast for that lengthy interview between those two and Kamala Harris not giving any interviews. Now, Musk has, because Harris Wall's campaign started fundraising off the interview, he made the offer to Harris as well, saying, I'd love to do an interview with you. And it wasn't really even an interview. It was more of a conversation. Maybe that would make her feel more at home. One other quick New York State update, just because we have not heard much about this as of late. The New York Reparations Commission met for the first time on July 30th, a few months after Governor Hochul formally announced its creation. With 8 of its 9 members present, the committee unanimously selected a chairperson, Dr. Sanal Hawkins, who currently serves as a president of the Urban League of Rochester and has an extensive career in nonprofit leadership. The committee was unable to settle on a vice chair, so the matter was adjourned for a subsequent meeting to be held within 30 days. Now, they did an interview with citylimits.org. Commission member Jennifer Jones Austin explained that the group had to implement the coordinating structure for their work before officially meeting. Their task is time sensitive. The commission will have 12 months from the date of its first meeting to issue a report with recommended actions to provide reparations to black New Yorkers to address the long-standing effects of the legacy of slavery. Trevor Smith, a young organizer with New Yorkers for Reparation, is at the forefront of the grassroots effort to build public support for reparations and for New York State's commission itself. And this is an exact quote from Smith, when the recommendations come out, legislators still have to write bills and get those bills signed based on the recommendations. And so there has to be an advocacy apparatus that is pushing legislators to actually turn these recommendations into legislation. So that is just a quick update. Coming up later on in the program, we are going to find out all about India Day coming to Corning. Well, here you go. Coming to Corning and in Centerway Square this Saturday at 4 p.m. We're going to find out all about that in the 7 o'clock hour. Don't forget, tomorrow in the 7 o'clock hour, we'll be talking with Steuben County Sheriff Jim Allard, so get your questions in for that. When we come back, and I want you to think about this during the break, Ricky Schlott says most Gen Zers actually say that Taylor Swift could sway their vote. And as Ms. Schlott says, and that's a big problem. We're going to talk about it because this has been a topic we've discussed on the program recently, the celebrity aspect to Kamala Harris's campaign, getting almost mini concerts before her rally that helps pack those people in. It was a very Hillary Clinton-esque. She used to do the same thing. We talk about celebrities jumping on the Harris bandwagon with those Zoom meetings. So when we come back, a little bit about this piece and getting your opinion. So you're quiet this morning. Yesterday, Monday morning, everybody was so talkative and waving. It's a quiet morning. All right, that's okay. I like it to be a little quiet on this Tuesday morning edition. Let's take our first break, and then we will be back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, stay with us. And we are back with Frankly Speaking, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. Let's start with some comments here. The Trump-Elon Musk interview was all over the place and repetitive. Needed a guy like Frank Acom to guide them. Well, thank you. I'm not sure how I could have helped. But I think there is something to be said when they're trying to fill so much time and the person doing the interview is not an interviewer. I'm not going to sound like it's, being a firefighter or a police officer or something, but doing an interview can be challenging depending on which direction it heads. So that does sometimes make for repetitive questions or stretched out questions, just hoping for longer answers from your guests. So I've got to say I've been there, but that was quite a while ago when you're really struggling. So I wondered, because I just read the transcript, and I'm always curious when a non-interviewer gives an interview. I'll continue. Also, Trump's voice sounded a little garbled at times, and it made him sound much older. Now, I did hear a clip this morning as I was preparing for work, and I had the news on in the background. And of course, because of the bias in the mainstream media, they were trying to suggest that there was questions if Trump was slurring. Now, I didn't hear the slur, but I definitely agree the quality was not good. And I would blame that, as someone who worked in radio and now in television, that cares somewhat about the audio sound, that to me seemed like a equipment issue more than anything. That it was very tinny-like and a kind of I don't know, a lot of popping of the peas type of scenario. Just a quick clip that I heard. So yes, I think it was the equipment. Continuing, Elon was searching for words a lot and all over the place with topics. That doesn't surprise me. But I couldn't help but keep watching it. Well, there you go. There's the final answer. I totally understand. It's a good opportunity. It reached a lot of people that Trump may not normally reach. Having said that, boy, you'd like to have it be perhaps somebody better prepared than to be repetitive, because that's when you lose people. That's when people are going to tune out and say, didn't he just answer that? All right, thank you. Keep those comments coming in. What did you think about the Musk-Trump interview? All right, Ricky Schlott says Taylor Swift and Beyonce are not political experts by any stretch of the imagination. So why do voters care so much about who they endorse? Listen to this, and this is so troubling. And I know we've highlighted it in the past, but it's a little more substantive in this article. A new poll found that a solid majority of Gen Z voters admit that they would be swayed by a celebrity endorsement. as grassroots groups like Swifties for Kamala have popped up. Conducted by Redfield and Wilton Strategies for Newsweek, the poll shows that 34% of Gen Zers are significantly more likely to get out to the ballot box if Taylor Swift endorses a candidate. Worse yet, 40% said the same thing of Beyonce. Now, anticipation is mounting over whether Taylor Swift, who has well over 200 million followers on Instagram, will endorse the Harris-Walz campaign after other stars have endorsed her. Beyonce has reportedly allowed the Harris campaign to use her song Freedom, with some predicting that it forebodes an endorsement. And I think what this all boils down to, and I couldn't agree with Ricky Schlott more, the power of celebrity in politics is all so depressing. Groupthink is a dangerous thing no matter the context. But groupthink led by the possibly ill-informed political opinions of an utterly unqualified pop star is especially disturbing. What does Taylor Swift know about immigration policy, or reducing the national debt, or halting the economy's free fall? That's unclear, but at least she knows how to shake it off. I will make a point, though, here. We don't know what Harris's position on immigration policy or reducing the national debt or halting the economy are either, because she's not giving interviews and has not put her policy up on her website. So maybe there's something to be said there. But continuing, imagine caring so little about your country and your own place in it that it takes a celebrity stamp of approval to get you off the couch and to the ballot box. And it's all made worse by the fact that just 18% of 18 to 34-year-olds say they're extremely proud to be an American. Think of that number. So now, not only are they saying they can be persuaded by a celebrity endorsement, but also 18%, just 18% of 18 to 34-year-olds say they're extremely proud to be an American. The power of celebrity endorsement is a symptom of this culture that we're in, as Gen Z obsessively looks to influencers online to inform them of the way they should dress, the music they like, and apparently now the way they should vote. And this is only getting worse. I know I mentioned this on the program last week, but we may laugh at influencers or Facebook, or I don't use Facebook, or I don't use Instagram, or I don't use TikTok. You can laugh at it all you want, and that's fine if you don't use it. But at the end of the day, sadly, it has a major impact. So many people, not even young people like this, so many people of all demographics get their news from social media. Is that troubling? Is it disturbing? Absolutely. But is it also the truth? Yes. And that's something we have to keep in mind with the power of social media as we enter the election. That's why many are concerned that they will try to censor certain information, influence the race in a certain way. Influencers and social media's power to change minds is clearly a modern version of social contagion, which has always been more prevalent among teen girls than other demographic groups. Generational expert Dr. Jean Twenge told the Post, there's even a backlash effect that still feeds into groupthink, as poll respondents say that a celebrity endorsement would make them more likely to vote for the other candidate. Some 26% of Zoomers were significantly less likely to vote for a candidate endorsed by Taylor Swift, and 18% said the same of Beyonce. So either it's a pro-vote or an anti-vote, but the fact that you are weighting and basing it on a celebrity endorsement is disturbing at best. That leaves less than a third of Zoomers whose vote wouldn't be pushed or pulled by celebrity influence. But don't blame it all on young voters. They're only repeating what they learned from prior generations. In fact, according to the Newsweek poll, it found that only 55% of the general electorate of all ages said the Taylor Swift Taylor Swift endorsement wouldn't influence the way they vote. Celebrity endorsements have swayed voters long before Gen Z came of voting age. Back in the 2008 primaries, it was estimated that Oprah Winfrey's endorsement translated to more than 1 million votes for Obama. I'm not going to go through the various endorsements through the years, but if you look at it, George Clooney, very powerful aspect to pulling Biden out of the re-election campaign. It should go without saying, but the 2024 election is hugely consequential. Our choice at the ballot box is going to be felt for decades to come and around the globe. Being an informed voter means turning to the data, listening to the experts, and letting your individual, your gut reaction guide the way. Not waiting for what your favorite pop star signals on social media. So again, we can laugh at this, but if we don't take it seriously, it's something that we can be caught off guard by yet again. And there's been a lot of talks about that in the past with a Taylor Swift endorsement and what that would mean. But unfortunately, it's not just Taylor Swift. The influence and the influencers have so much power over really the country, but the young people. So it's something we have to take in mind. I don't have the answers to how you fix the problem or how you maybe use the problem for your advantage. But it's something that we should all be taking seriously, just like the power and the impact social media can have on the race and on the election. We've got to take another short break. Stay with us. Keep those comments, keep those waves coming in. What'd you think of the Musk-Trump interview? I'd love to hear from you. But stay with us. We'll be right back. And we are back. Broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. It is, as of this morning, 23 days where Kamala Harris has not held a press conference. That's when she emerged as a presumptive Democrat nominee 23 days ago. The left-leaning Washington Post editorial board has even challenged Harris over dodging the media on Sunday, saying of her opponent, quote, "At least he has taken questions." I don't see there being much of a real pushback on this, because right now I'm going to get into the media bias section that I've been talking about this morning, and you'll see the scenario of why, for lack of a better term, why should she? Van Jones saying that, we'll read you the full quote. Van Jones has been pretty straightforward lately. Van Jones saying, well, really tipping the Democrats' hand, saying, why would she give interviews? She doesn't need it. So they're running the Biden campaign, but with Harris, meaning the COVID from the basement campaign where you hand select certain interviews. Because remember, Kamala Harris says she's talking to her team and hopes to have an interview before the end of the month. One interview in the whole month of August, undoubtedly with a friendly outlet, but let's even put that to the side. One interview, as we see yesterday, Trump giving an interview with Musk, by having that press conference last week as well. J.D. Vance making the rounds over the weekend. I know I keep bringing up the story, but if you can think about how many interviews former Congressman Joe Sempolinski did while in office, right up until really the last moments of his time in office, still giving press conferences. And that's for the 23rd Congressional District. You're telling me that the person running, who never received a single vote for the job, but the person running as a presumptive Democrat nominee, can't tell voters where she stands? Because last I've checked, the policy and her policy and Walz's policy not up on their website. So we have no real answers. So she won't, as of now, give an interview, but why should she? This is, I equated it yesterday to, if you like boxing, kind of a boring fight where you have a quote-unquote technical fighter like a Floyd Mayweather Jr. just running around the ring the whole time, and you say none of that was fun. That's what she's doing, except for instead of fun, none of this was informative. Nothing gets the American voter to know more about her, which is exactly apparently what they want. But again, to stress this point, why would she? When you see something like this coming from Time Magazine. Yes, that is the front cover of Time Magazine, as some are calling it propaganda or worshiping the Democrat nominee. Her Moment is the title of that issue. Now think of that. Her moment was the Democrats dragging Biden, kicking and screaming, off the re-election campaign, installing her into the position. Not a single vote. I'm not going to try to sound like a broken record or beat a dead horse here, but not receiving a single vote from her party for the job. And now, with no kind of sheepishness, they say it is her moment. And there's more to this piece, but I had to show you, to kick off our media bias section, I had to show you that cover. The Time cover story depicted Harris with her supporters in the background on the cover with the phrase, her moment. Inside, author Charlotte Alter wrote that Harris, quote, pulled off the swiftest vibe shift in modern political history. The piece began with a description of the vibes of Harris's debut with her running mate, Tim Walz. Quote, the soundtrack suggested a Beyonce concert. The light-up bracelets evoked the Eras Tour. And the exuberant crowd, more than 14,000 strong, lining up in the rain, resembled the early days of Barack Obama. Inside a Philadelphia arena on August 6th, Vice President Kamala Harris was greeted with a kind of reception a Democratic presidential candidate hasn't gotten in years. Alter argued that the Democrat Party underestimated Harris and that the vice president hadn't given her the opportunity to showcase her talents. And we are not even kidding about this. We've been saying this on the program for quite some time, that once she became the nominee, presumptive nominee, it was going to be, wow, finally with the reins off of the Biden administration and the White House, she's going to be the candidate we knew she could be. Now, that's to ignore how she ran in 2020 in that primary, where her only true highlight was calling her now boss a bigot. So we were supposed to ignore that, again, just like with the economy. Never mind what you're seeing with your eyes and what you're hearing. Never mind the interviews we've seen her give in the past, which aren't that frequent. Never mind the speeches she gave off the cuff and how wild and crazy they could be. The word salad that so many people talk about. They're never really standing on substance. We know she's got a far left track record that she's now trying to manipulate. Very little, though, because she's not really even talking about her policies. But the Democrats underestimated her. And now she has a real opportunity to showcase her talent. And that talent being, and we had that piece for you weeks ago, which was, sure, the speeches are on teleprompter, but she knows how to pick a good speech to give. This is going to continue, and if you think this is frustrating, buckle in, because there's so many more examples. Now, we know that Harris is yet to sit down with an interview. So that means, by the way, this whole piece, her moment piece, was done without her interaction into it. That this was not a sit-down interview with Time Magazine. It was them writing a glowing propaganda piece to continue to boost this momentum that they talk so much about. Harris, the piece interviewed Harris allies, not Harris. The piece interviewed Harris allies like Pete Buttigieg, CNN's Bakari Sellers, and gun control activist David Hogg. Hogg said, quote, elections come down to vibes, and Kamala has got the vibes right now. Now, of course, conservatives were quick to criticize the coverage, especially due to the absence of Harris's voice. Where is the news story here for Time, especially Time, where they didn't have a quote from Harris. They didn't interview Harris. This was just sitting down with her supporters so that they could write this glowing piece and really in what can only be described as propaganda. They also panned the headline of the piece, which was the reintroduction of Kamala Harris. Now, the reintroduction of Kamala Harris, think of this. She has been in the White House for the last 3 years. Why do we need a reintroduction? Journalist Glenn Greenwald posted on X, quote, the way the U.S. corporate media transformed Kamala Harris from a national embarrassment to a transformative pioneer overnight, without even pretending to care about anything that she thinks or believes, is a powerful testament to how potent the science of propaganda is. I could not agree more. Jim Treacher saying journalists worshiping politicians is terrific. Ironically saying it, of course. No reintroduction necessary. She's the vice president of the United States. We know her well, said Republican communications strategist Matt Whitlock and others, calling the piece propaganda. But it only begins there. That's just one piece. And it's going to get worse before it gets better. That's why they don't mind, and we're going to tell you what Van Jones had to say in just a moment, but that's why they do not mind that she is not doing interviews, that she is not addressing the media or the nation to tell you what her policies are. Because why would she, when you get a piece from the Time that says her moment and then just writes a glowing review about her, not coming from her, but coming from her supporters. So we'll talk more about this bias and this propagandizing of Harris's policies and positions and candidacy when we come back. Stay with us. Running just a tad bit late. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox. And we are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. Asking the question this morning, what do you think of the Elon Musk interview? We're talking about the media bias and protection, I guess you could say, of the Harris campaign. First, a comment from a viewer. As far as Elon Musk's endorsement, I think it's a good thing. Not sure if it's going to have a real impact or not at this point. My belief is most people are pretty solid in their decision on who they're for. I've heard that Elon Musk is pretty mad at the current situation because of his son's gender-changing situation that he blames them for and vows to take them down. I did not. Well, I've seen the transcript. I saw a little bit of the interview yesterday. I just didn't have an opportunity. I will watch it later. So that's why I find this very interesting, what people think. I don't think it really moves the needle one way or the other, but it can't hurt to have some extra money behind your campaign, I suppose. And I do think with Elon Musk, he brings maybe a different demographic sometimes, or maybe some people that would not typically watch a Trump interview. So that could be a good thing. But what we've also heard is it was kind of not the best interviewer, meaning Musk, that there could have been. All right, so Van Jones, talking more about this media bias. Van Jones was talking about Harris's interview right after the disastrous debate from Biden. And this is what Van Jones, former Obama advisor, currently a CNN senior political commentator, said. Quote, "I'm not worried about her talking to a reporter. But right now, if it ain't broke, why fix it? She's got a convention coming up. She's going to go up another point or two. And then she could talk to a reporter. But you are watching, settle in, but you are watching a master class in politics happening from the most underestimated politician in America. Meanwhile, this juggernaut is falling apart," meaning the Trump campaign. It's number one, it's not falling apart. Look at the difference in the media coverage. One all glowing, one all praising, and the other attack. Even this morning when I was watching, I won't say what outlet it was, because I was just flipping through, but they're saying during the Musk interview that, boy, Trump, some are even speculating. They always do that. Some are speculating, not them. Some are speculating Trump was slurring during some of the interview. So it's all negative, all positive. Again, I would just point to a time. Would you ever imagine seeing that, but for Trump? Was there ever a his moment? Painted photo of Trump? And there's so many examples of it. But so if it ain't broke, why fix it? She's got a convention coming up. She's going to go up another point or two. Okay, Van Jones, and I appreciate the honesty there. But isn't there an argument to be made that she deserves, or excuse me, the American people deserve to hear from her when she never received a single vote for the job she's currently in, which is running for president of the United States? If this had been a primary season and she would have had challengers and we could have seen her in those scenarios, because when we saw her in those scenarios in the past, back in 2020, they were not good. So now that she has been anointed, put in there, isn't there an argument to be made that because there was no kind of vetting, if you will, that the American people deserve to know where her policies are? So it's not a masterclass in politics, as Van Jones says. I would disagree. I would say it's a masterclass in media manipulation and how the media can persuade, just like those celebrities we talked about at the beginning of the program, can persuade voters so easily through what is essentially being called propaganda. So a very telling statement there by Van Jones, and one that we thank for the truthfulness, because they have no reason right now, with the media fully supportive of Harris, they have no reason for her to give an interview or do anything that could mess this up. But the sad part is, I believe they can continue that for the next 3 months. It's not as if at some point she'll have to do this, she'll have to do that. They only have to get in the barn. They only have to make it 3 months, less than 3 months, which is nothing in the scheme of politics. So if they could cover up Biden's mental decline for 3.5 years, they can cover up any kind of negatives on her campaign and on her background and her history for 3 months, standing on their heads. So this is where the media and the media bias really comes into effect when there's only a 3-month campaign. So you get, as we pointed out yesterday, you get maybe that Time magazine that's so great for Harris. You get these great glowing pieces about her and how energized everybody is and the momentum she has and how great she is. And then on the other side of the coin, you have the constant media attention of this was the worst 3 weeks Trump's ever had. He just can't do it. He's no good. It's so predictable and continues to be so very, very frustrating. We're going to take another break because I have numerous examples of this, unfortunately. So you don't even have to have coffee this morning. If you want to get your blood pressure going, just stay tuned. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, please stay with us. And we are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Marcus Street in Corning. A couple comments here, or a comment. I watched the interview, and the picture of Trump they had up looked dark and mean. Also, I did like Elon admitting to being a Democrat, but still said he was going to vote for Trump. Yeah, good. Thank you. Keep those comments coming in. I'm not sure. Oh, I cut that out. I watched the interview on Rave. I'm not sure what that is. But thank you. Keep those comments coming in. Now, we're talking about the bias where Van Jones is saying, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. She doesn't have to give an interview. Why would she? The momentum's at her back. She's doing great. Yeah, because the media is propping her up in that way. Here's a prime example. Listen to this. Newsweek put up a headline. The headline is, quote, Kamala Harris tax proposal backed by a majority of Republicans. Do you know why her tax proposal is backed by a majority of Republicans? Because that tax proposal was the no tax on tips proposal that she stole from Trump. This is what Newsweek said. Considering that 68% of Republicans support the policy proposal, according to our recent poll, the plan could help Harris sway GOP voters unconvinced by Trump's candidacy towards supporting her in the November election. Now, later on, much later on, in the article. Now, again, the headline is Kamala Harris's tax proposal backed by a majority of Republicans. Later on in the piece, it says the majority of Americans support plans to end federal taxes on tips given to service industry workers. According to an exclusive poll for Newsweek, which shows why Kamala Harris has embraced the policy plan first announced by her opponent, Donald Trump. So as Matthew Foldy said, that's because it's Donald Trump's tax proposal. That's why Republicans support it. Iowa State Representative Carter Norman agreed that's because it's literally Donald Trump's tax proposal. Harris stole the idea from Trump. It's not her proposal. This is an insane take, even for Newsweek, said Rick Scott, Communications Director, McKinley Lewis. Shameless doesn't even begin to cover it. So the headline from Newsweek, they're not hiding it, folks. Kamala Harris's tax proposal backed by majority of Republicans, because that tax proposal that they're giving her credit for was Trump's no tax on tips. Oh, okay. Thank you for the update on that. Real America's Voice. I didn't know that's what RAV was. Thank you. I don't know. I'm still not familiar with it, but yeah, I didn't watch I know you could get it on Twitter or X. I don't even know. I don't even have a Twitter account. So I'm not really, I did at one point, so I didn't really know where to watch it. So I full disclosure, I've been bringing it up through transcripts and what I found from transcripts. Okay. Let's continue. Bloomberg, with this, and this is about the bias. What do you think about this? Sit back and relax. I've got so many of these to get you frustrated this morning. Bloomberg said, Bloomberg Magazine, they had a piece that claims that Kamala Harris's running mate, Tim Walz, embodies qualities Republicans value, and that he does not. Let me reword this. That Tim Walz's traditional masculinity and manly man traits are terrifying to Republicans. That's a better way to word it. Tim Walz's masculinity is terrifying to Republicans, argues the Walz background as a coach, military veteran, and avid hunter is unsettling for the GOP as he joins Harris on the 2024 Democratic ticket. According to the article, Republicans have scaled back their initial attacks on Harris race and gender, and instead are now targeting the traditional signifiers of Walz's masculinity, traits that conservatives typically admire. So according to Bloomberg, Tim Walz isn't afraid of women. Black people are the future. He's also a veteran and gun owner. Republicans don't know how to deal with that. That's coming from Francis Wilkinson at Bloomberg. Pointing to his supposed ruggedness, love for sports, and military service, Wilkinson insists Walz's background poses a challenge to MAGA mythology, which he claims posits that both liberalism and feminism threaten traditional masculinity. Quote, this is coming from Bloomberg. Those traditional manly traits are threatening enough on their own. But if such a marksman, state title winning football coach, and regular guy can happily play second fiddle to a black woman running for president, then what does that say about MAGA's efforts to reverse engineer the 21st century? After all, if a middle-aged, heterosexual white guy who likes to hunt doesn't have to live in constant fear of losing status and doesn't need traditional gender and racial hierarchies to validate his life choice, then what does he need Donald Trump and J.D. Vance for? Insisting that the GOP ticket is driven by rage, the essay further claims that the Republican Party is fossilized, regressive, wallowing in lazy bigotry, and pointed to the past, while Harris is running for the future. I give you every side on this, folks. I'm just reading you what the piece said from Bloomberg. Citing fashion writer Derek Guy, the piece compares the far-left Walz, who, quote, grabs his own gun to go hunting, to the wood-chopping, horse-riding Ronald Reagan. The article concludes by describing Walz as dangerous to both former President Donald Trump and his running mate, arguing that he is not frightened of women, afraid of black people, or terrified of the future. There you are. All right, there's a quick look this morning about the bias coming from the media. We'll have other examples of that, but that was just 3 or 4 right in a row that I wanted to mention. Democrat Representative Goldman said that he believes, do I have time for this? Yeah, let me get your opinion on this. So Walz is too much of a manly man, so that's hurting Republicans. Now we learn that Trump is going to be, or is chicken, that he likely won't show up for the ABC debate. That's coming from Representative Dan Goldman. He was on Fox News Channel's Special Report. He said that President Trump is too chicken to show up at the September 10th presidential debate. Now, keep in mind, he agreed to do this. Keep in mind, the Democrat nominee, presumptive Democrat nominee, has not given an interview since she was declared, anointed the Democrat nominee. She has not given an interview, has not done a presser. Some could maybe say, well, that seems kind of a little bit like a chicken. But no, not having happened yet, Trump is not going to show up to the debate because he's a chicken, says Representative Dan Goldman. Anchor Brett Baer said, on debates, do you think there is going to be one? Do you think that she will agree to other debates? Have you heard anything inside the campaign? Goldman said, look, everybody starts with that, look. If Donald Trump is not too chicken to show up on September 10th, which he had agreed to, I believe that Vice President Harris will be happy to have additional debates after that. If I'm Donald Trump, I understand why he doesn't want to debate. Kamala Harris is a former prosecutor. She is very strong. Again, this is pretending we didn't see her campaign for 2020 or the subsequent interviews she has given since VP. There's a reason. Dan Goldman can call Trump a chicken all he wants, but there's a reason why she does not want to do interviews. Because why wouldn't she? Everything has been glowing. Everything has been positive. Everything has been kind of this propaganda that we talked about. So why wouldn't she give another interview, get even more attention? And then they can say, wow, that was a great interview that she gave, while asking her softballs. So there's a reason why she's fearful of this, from speaking off the cuff. But again, this is a never mind what you see with your eyes. This is believe what we're telling you. Baer said he has accepted 3. He said yes to September 4th, September 10th, and September 17th. He has said yes to a lot of them. So it's not that he is obviously afraid to debate. Yes, it's quite the opposite, because she has only agreed to 1 when he's offered 3. Goldman said, no. He had agreed to September 10th on ABC. Baer said, with Biden, who got pushed out. So Goldman countered, what's the difference? Why should he not debate whoever the candidate is on September 10th as he agreed to? Twisting yourself up into a pretzel to try to call Trump a chicken on this when he has actually said, I want 3 debates. And originally backing out, saying we don't know if she is going to be the nominee. So why would we agree to this? We agreed to a debate with Biden, but that's not the same thing as the now anointed Kamala Harris. Two completely different things. So to say that he's scared when she has only accepted one out of the three. So Goldman couldn't drop it, saying, what is the difference between candidate Biden and candidate Harris? Because he agreed to the rules with Biden, not to Harris. It's as simple as that. To not be able to see that just for political reasons. But Goldman finally wrapped up saying he should do the debate that was originally scheduled for September 10th. If he shows up to that, still pushing this conspiracy theory that he's not going to show up. You can't trust Donald Trump to show up to anything. Where is this coming from? This is such a petty, pathetic kind of attack line that makes no sense. He will do September 4th on Fox, get with his, supporters in the audience, and then he'll just say no more debates. You can't trust Donald Trump. His supporters on Fox, did you see that the Disney executive, which is ABC, folks, that hosts a critical debate, is close friends with Kamala Harris? Is that the kind of fans, supporters that Representative Goldman is referring to in that interview with Bret Baier on Fox News? I know we got to take another break. Where did this hour go? I still got one more break and I'm running really late. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, please stay with us. Wrapping up hour number one of Frankly Speaking, broadcasting live from the Hesselson's studio. Comment from a viewer: I still don't think we've heard the last of Biden. I think he's going to stir things up closer to the convention. Well, he is scheduled to speak at the convention along with the Clintons and Obama. So thank you for those comments. Keep them coming in. A little quiet on waves this morning. That's okay. I understand. It's kind of frustrating. Maybe you don't feel like waving as we talk about all the media bias and this momentum of Harris through the media's hard work and dedication to getting her across the finish line and not asking any questions, not feeling the need to do an interview. We're going to talk more about that in the next hour. I'd love to hear more opinion on the Musk-Trump interview from yesterday. A lot of you commenting on it. I have not watched the whole thing. Most of it's through transcript, so that's why your voice is the most important, as it always is here on the program. Coming up in the next hour as well, we'll be talking with representatives from STICA, and they will tell us all about India Day. We look forward to it. We were joined by representatives last year as well to learn about it, and that's why I'm glad that they could be back on the program, so you can mark your calendar to attend Centerway Square to India Day on Saturday. That's coming up the next hour. But right now we do have to, I know this was a quick segment, we have to take a short break to reset and go to the top of the hour for hour number two of Frankly Speaking right here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, stay with us. Hour number two. Frankly Speaking, broadcast live from the studio here cover of Kamala Harris. We've been talking about the momentum, their trajectory that we hear so much about. We've also talked about Representative Dan Goldman saying that Trump's too chicken to come to the ABC debate. What do you think? Now, originally he had agreed to do it with Biden, and then he said, no, we don't know if Harris is going to be the nominee, so we'll wait. Then he has since agreed to the September 10th debate on ABC. I'm not sure why Representative Goldman believes he will be chicken. He said that he thinks he wants to do the Fox debate first so that then he can say, I was there with my quote-unquote supporters, so then I don't have to do any more debates. But then let's take a look at ABC. And I know I mentioned it quickly at the end of the hour, but let me just give you a little more information on this. Dana Walden, a senior Disney executive whose portfolio includes ABC News, is one of Vice President Kamala Harris's extraordinary friends. That's an exact quote, according to a report in the New York Times. Walden and Harris have known each other since 1994, while their husbands Matt Walden and Doug Emhoff have known each other since the 80s. Dana Walden has donated to dozens of Democrats and contributed to Harris's political campaigns since at least 2003, when she ran for district attorney in San Francisco. She went on to donate to her subsequent campaigns for California Attorney General and United States Senate, as well as her 2020 White House bid. Harris even credited Dana and Matt for her marriage at a fundraiser in April of 2022, which was held at the Walden's home in Los Angeles. ABC told the New York Times that Walden, who is Disney's highest-ranking television executive, does not weigh in on editorial decisions. The network's primetime debate is set for September 10th and will be moderated by ABC anchors David Muir and Lindsay Davis. Wow, now a bunch of comments coming in. We'll get to those a little bit later on. But just highlighting the media's bias throughout the morning on this broadcast. But we have other issues to get to, such as the Musk-Trump interview. But I thought Glenn Reynolds had an interesting point. And he said, you can tell this election is a working class election by Harris and Walz's dishonesty. The stealing class has figured out that it's a working class election. You can tell by what they pilfer. By stealing class, I mean the Harris and Walz's campaign in particular, and the party of big government in general. They exist and flourish not by creating new wealth and ideas, but by stealing the produce of others. In Harris's case, that means shamelessly stealing Donald Trump's no taxes on tips proposal and floating it as if it were her idea, something made less plausible by Kamala's lifelong history of not having original ideas. Yeah, but if you look at it, all it takes is like that Newsweek title. Kamala Harris's tax proposal supported by a majority of Republicans. How many people go in and do the research and read far, far down that it was originally Donald Trump's proposal of no tax on tips? The media knows how to do this. They're very, very good at it. But I'll continue. Glenn Reynolds said, but it's meant to show that she cares about the working class. In Walz's case, what he stole was valor, posing as a combat soldier when he never was, and claiming he retired as a command sergeant major when he didn't actually do so. Instead, he abandoned his unit, taking early retirement rather than deploy, an act that caused even his old unit's chaplain, folks, to call him cowardly. His own chaplain. That's a working class issue because most of our combat soldiers share a working class background, and Walz was pretending a solidarity with them that he never actually earned. Well, hypocrisy is a tribute that vice pays to virtue. And by pretending to care about working class people, the Democrats are telling us that they think it's a working class election. The press, which decades ago was filled with working class reporters, but is now stocked with elite journalists, is focused on issues like trans rights, abortion, gun control, and the like. And those issues do matter to the college-educated Karens who are the biggest consumer of news media today. But the working class is busy working, or trying to, and has been doing much worse ever since 2020. Trump's 4 years in the White House were the first time the working class made gains since the early 2000s. And while the press and its audience may not care, you can bet the working class people do. The working class has also been most affected by various foreign wars and disasters, like Biden's humiliating skedaddle from Afghanistan. It's been most affected by the urban riots and crime waves spread by Democrats' woke policies. By suddenly starting to take account of working class issues, even if they have to steal to do so, the Harris-Walz campaign is telling us what they know. And telling us that they know that, and they're not the only ones. As Ray Texera wrote in these pages not long ago, quote, working class non-college voters will likely determine the outcome of the 2024 election. It's estimated they will comprise about 2/3 of eligible voters in November and even higher in key swing states like Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Nevada, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. Now, according to Glenn Reynolds, worse yet for the Democrats, many of the minority voters they expected would produce their new Democratic majority, a term coined by Texera in the 90s, became really set in and are not only unmoved but are positively repelled by woke issues. But hey, if Harris takes your kid away from you because you won't let him be surgically, have that surgery, at least she won't make you pay taxes on your tips. This is coming from Glenn Reynolds, and I want to hear your opinion. The problem for the Democrats is that they haven't been the party of the working class for a long while. They're now the party of billionaires. Yeah, think about it. The big money is what ultimately shaped this complete race from beginning to end, helping to kick Biden out and then giving all that money to Harris right off the jump so that she could have that momentum. So big money has decided who the Democrats have as their presidential nominee, not the Democratic voters. It's kind of interesting. If the Republicans, who are now a multiracial party of the working class, which is especially a problem for Democrats in a working class election. It's not all bad news for Democrats. They retain the political equivalent of air superiority via their control of the legacy media, which since Kamala was selected has reached new levels of bias and social media platforms as well. It'll be fun to watch places like Mother Jones and Rolling Stones, which mock Trump's no tax on tips proposal as a lame political stunt, and the like, spin on a dime and praise Kamala's genius in helping out America's oppressed waitresses. I don't have a great track record on political predictions, and this election, complete with an assassination attempt the press has done its best to erase from memory, defies all experience. But the press hype is all about atmospherics and vibes, like the Time magazine. And while Democrats are hoping for a vibe election, there's a certain vibe when the utility bill arrives too. They may stick more with voters than what the pundits have to say. I thought that was a pretty good piece by Glenn Reynolds. I wanted to get your opinion on it. The media can continue to tell you about the hype and the momentum, but will that last? Will that stay? Are our voters happy with saying, not only did I have no say in who the nominee is going to be, as long as it's not Trump, I don't care. Is that what they're going for? Well, that's what the media is trying to push. Yes, she's a great candidate. Never mind her past, nothing like that. Anything to make sure that Trump's not back in the White House. Now, back to what Glenn Reynolds was saying there, Tim Walz and that kind of the claims of stolen valor has been kind of a major issue if you're in certain outlets, not on the mainstream media, which I know you don't always want to play this game, but just think back if this would have been any other, well, it would have to be a Republican on the ticket, if they had lied about their service. Because, I mean, Democrats get away with it. Look at Richard Blumenthal. Look at Walz now. Just interesting. Hillary Clinton, who once falsely claimed she took a sniper fire in Bosnia, attempted to come to the rescue of Tim Walz. She tweeted out, Tim Walz served honorably for 2 decades. Then he joined Congress and worked to pass a new GI Bill that helped fund the college educations of millions of veterans, among them J.D. Vance. Now, the Post did not address Walz's false claims over the last 2 decades of being a retired command sergeant major when he actually retired a rank below, nor did her Post address Walz's false claim that he carried weapons in war when he never served in combat. And the Post did not address Walz retiring from his then military contract early, just months before his unit he served in as a leader deployed to Iraq. Now, just throwing a little cover there, saying that Tim Walz served honorably for 2 decades. Then he joined Congress and worked to pass a new GI Bill that Vance took advantage of. Wow, so many comments this morning. It was quiet in the 6 o'clock hour. Now the 7 o'clock hour is taking off. What did you think about, we're going to move on here from the bias. What did you think about the Musk-Trump interview? If you're just joining us, we heard from a few people saying that kind of an awkward style for Musk as an interviewer, kind of repetitive, kind of rambling on. That's what kind of happens when someone is in an interview and you have a very lengthy interview. It's not always the easiest, but it started, of course, with the technical difficulties. Now, this is not the first time they've had the technical difficulties. The same when Ron DeSantis was making his announcement that he's going to run for president. Same issue. We'll talk about what was said, but the alleged DDoS, and I'm not a big tech guy. I heard this kind of explained a little bit yesterday, but the DDoS attack on X derailed the start of the conversation. There appears to be a massive DDoS attack on X, working on shutting it down, Musk said. Worst case, we will proceed with a smaller number of live listeners and have the conversation and post the conversation later. Now, DDoS, or distributed denial of service, is a common attack method in which hackers flood a site with phony traffic to overwhelm its system and attempt to knock it offline. Musk said in a separate post that X tested the system with 8 million concurrent listeners earlier today. So we'll talk about that not about that, but we're going to talk about the interview when we come back a little bit later on, right around 7:20. We're going to be talking with representatives from Stika and the India Day, coming up on Saturday. India Day here in Corning, Centerway Square, Saturday at 4 p.m. We'll learn all about it right around 7:20. So stay with us. We've got to take a short break. This is Frankly Speaking here on WIDC TV, Big Fox. And we are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Marcus Street in Corning. I'm your host, Frank Agam. Thank you so much for joining us. We have quite a few comments here I want to get to from viewers. Let's start right off. Sorry, I'm just trying to get it up on the screen here. First off, good morning, Frank. Good morning. Totally disgusted by the media coverage. How can conservative-minded people counter such biases? I'm assuming what that means. I don't think we can. And that's maybe why I sound like a broken record, and I'm so concerned about them being able to run out the clock for the next less than 3 months, because they just have to keep up this type of coverage, and it doesn't take much, unfortunately, to persuade so many people. And like we said earlier, if you're just joining us in the 6 o'clock hour, Gen Zers saying that they would change their opinion on who to vote for by a Taylor Swift endorsement or a Beyonce endorsement. So you have that. You've got social media. You have the legacy media, the mainstream media. The list goes on, and they are all here to prop up a Harris Walz campaign to get them across the finish line and into the White House. Next up, Frank. Trump should continue saying no to the ABC debate, but just show up on that day prepared for any questions and take the win over the Democrats. That's a good idea. I don't think the Democrats would play along on that. I just don't think they would show up. They'd keep saying that he was chicken, that he was not going to do it. I just don't think, and I understand the people that say they don't want him to do a debate at a bias outlet, and I get that. I totally understand, and normally I'd be 100% in that camp. In this case, I don't think there'll be too many opportunities for people to see the real Harris, the non-scripted Harris, the Harris that has to speak off the cuff. Because what'd she say? She wants to do one interview, by the end of the month, by the end of August. One interview from the person who never received a vote to be at the position she's in right now. She does not feel that she needs to give the information on her background, on her policies, whatever the case may be. So I don't think there's going to be that many opportunities to see, for whatever reason she's scared of, to see why she's scared and actually get to see the real Kamala and not the scripted teleprompter speech. And that's not knocking her rallies where she's giving a teleprompter speech. I'm just saying that's all, as of right now, she's done. So I think that's what they're going to continue to do, because if you are just joining us, Van Jones, former Obama advisor, saying if it ain't broke, why fix it? She's got a convention coming up. She's going to go up another point or two, and then she can talk to a reporter. But you are watching a masterclass in politics happening from the most underestimated politician in America. Now, many people saying Obama's working behind the scenes and helping her, but I guess they're giving her full credit for this masterclass. And remember, the masterclass in politics means avoiding the press, avoiding the American people, avoiding the voters. Just go to the rallies and read your telepromptered speech. That's just Van Jones's comment. Another comment from a viewer. Frank, the cover of Time magazine was clearly photoshopped. It was originally you, because you do more live interviews than Kamala does. I easily do more live interviews than Kamala. That's not even a close race. But thank you. I would not want him to be on Time magazine. Other comments. These go out from all over the place. Historically, criminals don't vote. When Democrats push to get convicted felons the right to vote, they show their disdain for the legal voting citizens. The moral decay is a huge problem in America. Thank you very much. Another comment from a different viewer. Harris and Walz are on par with running Valerie Jarrett and George Soros. Choose wisely. It may be our last chance. Trump 2024. Thank you, viewer. And then I thank you for this comment from a viewer, kind of changing topics. Good morning. Good morning. Any update on Clemens Center Bridge? I do not personally have any updates on Clemens Center Bridge. I will make a note here. Maybe we can talk to someone about that, maybe get an interview going. So thank you for that. I have the same updates you have that were, I think, from a couple of weeks ago, given the time frame, but nothing as of late. So if I hear anything, I will let you know. All right, we do have to take a break because we've got representatives from India Day in Stika. You can find out more at Stika. I think it's Stika.com. You'll have that on the bottom of the screen as we go along. Keep these comments coming in. Now, Musk, just quickly, before we go to the break, Musk tries to help Trump halt the Harris surge. I just had to give you one more example of the bias. That would never be portrayed that way if the shoe was on the other foot. So instead of saying they did an interview when Harris hasn't done an interview or having any type of headline like that, it's Musk trying to help Trump, just save Trump. because he can't compete against the Harris surge. Maybe it's just because the man running for president of the United States wants an opportunity to speak to millions of people and let his positions be known. It could be that, where Harris seems to have a very different opinion on that, not giving interviews, not having the conversation with the American people that never had a say in voting for her, mind you, who maybe deserve, the American voter deserves to find out a little bit more about Harris and not just get it through the lens of the media bias. But again, that does not seem to be Stephen Collinson from CNN's concern. It was Musk tries to help Trump. But let's take that break, because I want to hear all about India Day. And that's coming up next here on Frankly Speaking on WYDC TV. Big Fox, stay with us. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. We are broadcasting from the Hesselson studio, and this is the Steuben Senior Services Fund section of the program. And I'd like to talk today about India Day. Welcome to our guest. Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you. Thank you.
We talked about India Day last year. How'd it go last year?
Last year was very interesting. We had rain and thunder warning, but we all moved to the garage and made it happen.
Oh, that's wonderful.
So, yeah.
Well, hopefully, fingers crossed, not this year. So let's start off first for those wondering, what is STICA?
STICA stands for the Southern Tier Indian Cultural Association.
Okay.
And we are a community basically built by the local subcontinent Indians, specifically South Asian community.
Okay.
And it started off as just a group of families that had just moved to the area, trying to revive their culture and teach their children who were all born here about their home country.
Sure.
And it started off just a few families gathering up to celebrate some festivals and just some events together. And then eventually the members decided to make an association, and then they became a nonprofit and started the official process of running a nonprofit that represented the Indian community here in our area.
That's not a fun process, I don't think.
No, it's not, and they have still done it, and we still have one of the founding members
on
our advisory even today.
How long ago did it start, ballpark?
Thinking like in the 80s.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah,
so it's been
around the 80s, I would say the mid-80s, late 80s. I don't really know the exact timeline, but STICA's definitely been around for quite a few decades in our area.
Now, where did the idea for India Day, which is actually coming up on August 17th at 4 o'clock right here in Centerway Square in Corning, where did that idea come about?
So,
sure. So I was part of the first India Day, which was right around the same time frame in 2005.
Oh, okay.
And it started as an idea that STICA had explored. Eventually, when I came to the community in 2001, I remember it was only a members-only association where you needed to be a STICA member to attend the events. You could do a non-member fee for, food and events and things, and it was only internal events that was only for the Indian community. But then there was a lot of conversation with people from my generation that felt that our children are born here and we need them to also incorporate their friends and our other friends, and everyone was interested. We love hearing about your Indian culture. We love your dresses and stuff. And we started this conversation. It took a while for the idea to come to fruition. So eventually the association decided that a festival like India Day should be created right around the time where India celebrates their independence.
Oh, interesting.
So our Indian Independence Day is on the 15th of August. And India got its independence from the British Empire in 1947 that year. And so that's how the process started. And so we decided that we would partner up with the Gaffer district and open up the event not just to our community, but to everybody else. And I would say that we had a very successful event that year. We had, I think, a crowd or attendance of at least 300 to 350 people that year.
That's great.
We had a whole bunch of things going on. We had a vendor come from Rochester and give us Indian food. We had a cultural event going on. Back in those days, we had a morning event. We started at 11 a.m. and finished at 3 p.m.
Oh, wow.
So, yes.
And now you're not even starting until 4 p.m.
So, yeah. So I moved to Corning in 2019.
Okay.
And, I saw from Portland, Oregon, and I saw a huge India Day there in Portland too.
Yeah.
This India Day is very intimate. It's close. It's very, dear and bonding. My first experience was, 2019, so there was COVID. So first India Day I came to was 2022.
Okay.
And for reasons, personal, I came very late. And everybody was packing up the food and everything. But then the organizers, Nitya, Jaya, Dipali, they went the extra mile to bring the food out
Isn't that
for
great?
me and my family.
Oh,
So
isn't
that
it?
was my introduction to Corning Stiker Day.
And you've seen it
India Day.
grow through the years. Does the numbers get bigger every year?
They do actually,
Yeah.
and we also end up getting quite a lot of engagement from the local tourism aspects.
Yeah.
Where we have people that are visiting the Corning Museum of Glass and they're on Market Street to either eat a snack or a lunch,
Sure.
and then they're like, "Oh, this is interesting." So I remember in 2021 we had, I think it was our first event after COVID. We had a break. And we came back and we opened up the dance floor right after the event, and we had a whole bunch of people dancing with music playing.
Yeah.
And we had two ladies that were visiting from New Jersey that just were walking around, and they happened to be Indian, and they were like, "Oh my God, there's like Indian music in the middle of the square." They just joined us and started dancing,
Oh,
and
isn't that fun?
we ended up having a new set of friends that we made. And I think the event has grown. We've been really very blessed that we've had very gracious media coverage
Yeah.
from all the news stations here. We've had people actually asking us about the event,
Yeah.
and I know Corning has been very integral in helping promoting our event as well within their networks, and even the tourism websites. We offer our information to everybody from the Arts Association to everyone, and they've also helped us grow our event. We've had people asking for participation outside of our Indian community,
Yeah.
which is a very, very big compliment to our event.
Now, if someone hasn't attended before and they're looking to go on August 17th at 4 p.m. at Centerway Square in Corning, what can they expect?
Shoma?
So we have food
Mm-hmm.
from a local vendor. By local, I mean Rochester. Hyderabad Biryani has always been a strong partner.
Yeah.
We've also worked with many vendors, but this time it's Hyderabad Biryani. There's good food. There's good culture program. There will be a arts and crafts stall, so you can engage on multiple fronts: food, culture, dance, and art. And the dance, of course, they will have an open dance floor. So as soon as the culture program is over, when we are having food, we will also have a lot of Bollywood dhamaka type music
Yes, that's
that
great.
people can just dance to.
Sure. Now, I'm sure this isn't possible without sponsors and volunteers, and we don't need to go through the whole list of your sponsors, but people can find it at the website on the right on the screen. Do you have a lot of volunteers? Is it your organization that pretty much puts this all on, or do you have outside volunteers?
So we have a strong group of board members. We have, very new members, new Indians coming into town who are extremely eager to volunteer. We are, in terms of sponsorship, we get a lot of help from Corning Inc., who are buying tickets, including, Corning Inc., Guthrie, Y. So a lot of local businesses are buying tickets for their, employees or members. So, and then we get sponsorship from Allsworth, from WJ Farmers, from Metadine, and including other individual sponsors in our community.
Well, it's getting right down to the wire. Is the planning going well for this year?
Yes, that's
you
always
gonna be ready? Yeah.
the last stretch.
Yeah.
It's we have a strong team, so we are working together.
Absolutely.
There
yes.
is the last stretch aspect of things.
Yeah.
It is intense, but it is super fun.
How can someone find out more if they're interested in becoming a member of Stika?
So we have our website. We also this year we did a major flyer drive. So we have flyers posted
yeah.
all across.
You sure do. I see them everywhere on Market Street.
The India Day by itself is very popular amongst the community here. When I reached out to Corning departments, they were like, "Oh yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely," and with India Day, with the flyers, with more advertisement, with your help, we hope to reach out to the larger community here.
And can people find a schedule of the whole day's events on the website?
Not yet.
Not yet.
So at the moment, we're still working on our itinerary and our agenda.
Oh, sure.
But however, once we get like a rough agenda, I mean, we have a program already scheduled. We're just trying to work on the time slots, depending on 100% participation to
Yeah.
confirm that they're all still in. We're also working on getting the audios together to make sure that everything plays on time.
Sure.
So yes, we will have like a rough agenda with just basic timelines. Even there will be a flyer that will be on strategic locations,
Oh,
telling
okay.
us what time the food is going to start, things like that, and we will have MCs making announcements. But yes, we will have one copy of the basic, I would say, a skeleton agenda for the
Okay.
community on our website as early as next week.
And one of the things is we want to keep a surprise element,
Yes,
maybe.
that too.
And
Of course.
and then one of the things that we are having with our culture program is it touches upon all the states and diversity in India.
Yes.
And so that's going to be kind of revealing in terms of the variety and the diversity that we have in our country.
Absolutely.
Would
We're
you-
also working. Sorry.
No, you're okay.
We're also working on a very, I would say, a concise yet explorative and informative and culturally vibrant program with variety. So we want to be able to offer our local community a glimpse into not just Indian culture, but also how Indian culture has been a part of us as immigrants living, away from our home, how we've managed to incorporate that and build a community which is inclusive, is welcoming, we're open, and we would love to share more about what we do here and open it up to more people. So we're looking at collaborating as we go forward with
That's
other community groups if they're interested in partnering up and doing something together to help build a stronger community.
Now, would you recommend people buy the tickets ahead of time, or can they wait till the day of?
I would recommend buy ahead of time. It helps us with our planning. We will have walk-in tickets, but again, it always helps if you buy ahead of time. We have our website, we have QR codes, so if you can buy ahead of time, that'll be super helpful for our organizing.
Okay, so the final question, this is the tough question. On August 17th at 4 p.m., Centerway Square, Corning, what are you looking forward to the most?
I'm looking forward to a summer Saturday evening outing
Yeah.
with the entire community.
Yeah.
And food, dance, lots of dance, and
Taking it all in. Enjoying
everybody
the day.
having fun.
Yeah. Same?
I'm looking forward to, first of all, the weather gods being gracious to us. Even though we did pretty much pull a very good emergency plan
Yeah, that's
last
great.
year, thankfully, with the Gaffer District that were so helpful in
Yeah.
helping us adapt our program from a stage environment into a parking garage. And also have to thank, I would take this opportunity, especially for last year and even this year, to thank all the community members that pulled in together that last year, our participants, our coordinators that actually have been working tirelessly all these months to put together a really beautiful program
Yeah.
for our community.
Well, we're looking forward to it. Thanks so much for being on the show this morning.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good
Thank you
luck.
for having us.
Good luck
Thank
on
you.
August 17th at 4 o'clock, Centerway Square in Corning. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, stay with us. And we are back. Thank you to our guests from STICA. There's that information yet again up on your screen for India Day this Saturday, Centerway Square in Corning. Thank you for being on the program this morning. Let's go to a comment from a viewer. Frank, I'm surprised that people don't think Kamala, the Democrats, and the operable wing of the Democrat Party, meaning the legacy media, have policy plans for America. They all collectively talk about it every day. Their policy is to propagandize the American people. The outcome that they hope to achieve is becoming the only electable party in America. To achieve this goal, they are willing to say and do anything, including but not limited to lying, buying votes, demonizing the opposition, rigging elections, lawfare, calling the opposition names, censoring the opposition, causing division within the country between races and sexes, and in general, any way they can think of to achieve their end goal. Thank you, Ken. Thank you for that comment. Keep the comments coming in. We're talking about Musk and Trump. Stephen Collinson saying tech titan Elon Musk threw open his X platform, offering Donald Trump a pipeline free of fact checks for his falsehoods, conspiracy theories, and extremism as he tries to slow the rise of Democrat nominee Kamala Harris. Again, we're just highlighting the bias most of this morning. And what he's saying there is, without giving any specifics about the falsehoods and conspiracy theories and extremism, that is their attitude for not giving him a quote-unquote platform. That Trump should not have a platform because in their mind, there has to be falsehoods and fact checks all the time. Only one side has to be fact checked, by the way. That's Trump and Vance. The other way around is fine. Because again, all of this makes us ignore two things. That Harris hasn't given an interview, has not been forthcoming with the American people, and you have to ignore the fact that she did not receive one single vote for the position she's in right now. So if you ignore those two things and all things are equal, I suppose, when it comes to the media. The chat represented yet another extraordinary chapter in a presidential campaign that has defied logic with its stunning twists in recent weeks, including an assassination attempt against Trump and President Joe Biden ending his re-election bid. The former president has been floundering. Why has he been floundering? It's because the media says he's been floundering, but I'll continue. Struggling to cope with a soaring start by the new Democratic nominee. At times, during their expansive chat, Musk seemed to be using the power of his profile and platform to coach Trump on how to mount a better argument against Harris. Okay. Now, it was lengthy. That's for sure. That's why I've only been able to go through the transcript thus far as much as I can. Trump said during the lengthy interview, it's pretty sad when you think that somebody that does this for a living can't answer a question or is afraid to do an interview. And in her case, with a very friendly interview. She's got all friendly interviewers. Yeah, she knows she can go to a place that will be very easy softball questions. And yet she, for whatever reason, you can speculate, is scared to do so, will not do so, saying that she's talking to her team to get one interview booked by the end of the month. Folks, we're less than 3 months away, and you're telling me that that doesn't just signal and show your hand that you are trying to run out the clock, knowing that the media is going to continue to praise you, as the Time magazine piece said, that it's a vibes election, and she's got the vibes going for her. It's because the media has propped up with this momentum. The same media that at times was very critical of her because they did not believe she was a good candidate. They did not want her to be the candidate when it would have been a free and fair election. But now that she was appointed and anointed, they have made it crystal clear that she is now perhaps the best candidate to ever run for president. He continued, she is considered more liberal by far than Bernie Sanders. She's a radical left lunatic. And if she's going to be our president, very quickly you're not going to have a country anymore. And she'll go back to all the things that she believes in. She believes in defunding the police. She believes in no fracking, zero. These are just this is coming from Fox News, some of the things that were covered. There was the hack at the beginning, allegedly, that looks like caused quite an issue with that delay. He said, one thing I thought was a really interesting takeaway, and I want to highlight this because I'm not sure the mainstream media will tell you. He was asked about the assassination attempt, and he says, I'm a believer now. I'm more of a believer, I think. A lot of people have said that, meaning in God, after the assassination. For those of you who don't believe in God, I think we can all start thinking about that. So this first one was not a good situation. Not a good situation. That was really something incredible. That was from God. That was from God because the chances, that was from God. For all of you non-believers, that one was from God, right? So I'm more of a believer, I think. A lot of people have said that. He also called the ousting of Biden a coup. Vice President Kamala Harris hasn't done an interview since the whole scam started. And say what you want, this was a coup. This was a coup of a president of the United States. Biden didn't want to leave. And they said, we can do it the nice way or we can do it the hard way. What they did with this guy, and I'm no fan of his. He was a horrible president, the worst president in history, first of all. The Israeli attack would have never happened. Russia would have never attacked Ukraine. And we'd have no inflation. And we wouldn't have had the Afghanistan mess. Think of it. You take a few of those events away and we have a different world. Think of it. 4 years ago, we were so respected. So he also continued, he would never have done, and he talked about Russia and Kim Jong-un. But I want to go into what was said. I'm looking at, I don't want to get too far behind here. He also went after the border very effectively, I believe. It just blows my mind to think that we're less than 3 months away and Harris won't give an interview, and yet Trump sits down for this extensive interview. More than 1.2 million users tuned into the interview, billed as a conversation or a chat, and I'd love to hear your take on it if you've had an opportunity to see it. Trump went after Harris Wall's ticket after Musk noted that the X Spaces event was aimed at open-minded independent voters just trying to make up their mind with less than 3 months to go before Election Day. He talked about the border crisis. We're already overwhelmed, Elon, referring to the record-breaking migrant surge. You had to see the news tonight about New York, and I love that place. And what they're doing to it is horrible. They're coming from Africa. They're coming from Asia. They're coming from the Middle East. They're coming from South America. They're coming from everywhere. And there are a lot of really bad ones. Trump pinned the blame on Harris, charging that as border czar under Biden, she could have closed the U.S.-Mexico border. She could close the border right now, that she's all talk. She tries to pretend she's going to do something. She had 3.5 years. Now, I don't want to go into just reading quotes because we don't have much time and I do have to take another short break. I don't want to go into just reading quotes, but I do want to hear your thoughts on the interview if you've had an opportunity to watch it. We are going to go through a couple of other quick things as well and just catch up the last 15 minutes here. Yes, even with 2 hours, it goes too fast. Stay with us. Get those last minute comments in, and we'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. And we are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. Just a couple other topics the New York Post considered takeaways, if you will, from the Musk-Trump interview. Skyrocketing inflation they addressed, the disastrous foreign policy of the Biden-Harris ticket, or Biden-Harris presidency. Spiral government spending, radical left lunatics. These are just some of the things that were covered. Now, Kamala used it as an opportunity to campaign and fundraise off of it. Right now, Elon Musk is interviewing Donald Trump live on Twitter. We're not calling it X. The campaign said in a message. The email, which asked supporters to chip in $25 now, charged that Musk was attempting to seize control of our democracy by hosting Trump for a highly anticipated conversation. So by having the conversation with the nominee, I know that's kind of shocking because you're not having a conversation with the American people as a nominee if you're Harris. So I guess by having a sit-down conversation and interview with Musk, the one outlet where this would happen at a time when they have every other outlet, like we talked about this morning, pop culture, the media, academia. But because he's having a conversation, think of that. He's attempting to seize control of our democracy. Quote, it's not enough that Musk has pledged to donate millions of dollars to help re-elect Trump. He's using his purchased platform, one of the largest social media sites in the world, to spread Trump's unhinged and hateful agenda to millions of Americans. So the nominee should have, because in Harris's mind, just to show you a little bit when they talk about democracy, he should not have an outlet. The Republican nominee should not even have an outlet to speak. They then called Musk a lackey for Team MAGA. Now, again, Musk saying he does not consider himself MAGA. He considers himself a Democrat that's going to vote for Trump. I think America is great. I'm more MAG, make America greater, he said. But continuing what the fundraising email had to say, Musk already ruined Twitter by allowing hate speech and disinformation to flood the platform. Now, Musk is using his vast fortune and broad reach to try to control our democracy. Donald Trump's extremism and dangerous Project 2025 agenda is a feature, not a glitch, of his campaign, which was on full display for those unlucky enough to listen in tonight during whatever that was on X. Trump's entire campaign is in service of people like Elon Musk and himself, self-obsessed rich guys who will sell out the middle class and who can outrun a live stream in the year 2024. Now, earlier in the day, Musk had tweeted out, happy to host Kamala on X Spaces 2. Now, Politico, and a bit of truth coming out about Harris, did say that Harris refused to help with the border. This is what the article in Politico said. Harris, too, resisted taking ownership of immigration when Biden charged her with managing the troubled Northern Triangle countries in Central America. Harris bristled at the implication that she had a direct role to play in fixing the border. Biden pushed off a reckoning again and again, eventually issuing strict new border control measures just weeks before his campaign unraveled. Harris, too, resisted taking ownership of immigration when Biden charged her with managing the troubled Northern Triangle countries in Central America. Harris bristled at the implications that she had a direct role to play in fixing the border. Yes, we are going through things quickly now. But as the New York Post editorial board said, and I'm just going to mention this real quickly, how many robberies, rapes, and murders will it take to end migrant crime madness? Now, this ties it more into what's happening in New York, but this is a part of what is happening with the open porous borders from the Biden-Harris White House. Recent outrages in Gotham alone, meaning New York City, will make your hair stand up, yet the perps not only get to remain in America, but are often set free to terrorize everyone else. Time and time again, it's pure insanity. Take Yornri Brito, an asylum-seeking thug from Venezuela, arrested and released in 3 separate thefts. Brito went on to lead a gang of fellow migrants in a vicious beatdown of 2 New York Police Department cops. Yes, cops. Was he deported? Nope. Was he locked behind bars? No. So Brito was free to rob 2 stores in just the past few weeks, cops say. Surely his menace deserves to be sent home yesterday. Remember, he has no right to be here in the first place. The Biden-Harris team has merely paroled him. Yet don't be surprised if he's freed yet again. And they give other examples of this, but it's a larger picture. Of course, Kamala Harris once vowed she'd absolutely close all privately run immigration detention centers, which is most of them, on day 1. If elected president, she also backed abolishing ICE. Now that she's the Democrat nominee, her aides say she's abandoned those positions, but she hasn't rejected the parole them all approach of the administration that she's still serving in. If you want more migrant crime madness, vote Harris Walls. That's coming from the New York Post. We got to take another short break. Oh, here's a comment. Good morning, Frank. Good morning. Thanks for the wave. All right, we'll take our last break, wrap things up in this hour. Stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on Big Fox. Where does the time go? Unbelievable. Wrapping up today's edition of Frankly Speaking, another comment from a viewer. Harris should speak for herself when it comes to hate speech. Her party uses hate speech against President Trump in every other word, alienating 50% of the country. She needs to look in the mirror at her own hate. There is definitely a hatred for Trump. You see it in no uncertain terms from the media. And I would say if you watched any of the Vance interviews from over the weekend, you can see that hate and that anger at Republicans and the Republican ticket in every question, dripping and oozing with that anger and hate from the quote-unquote journalists. Hey, this is just something interesting to maybe talk about on the way out the door. Barron Trump, yes, young Barron, is helping with his friend, best friend, it says here, Beau Loudon, helping the president secure the Gen Z vote. Now, this comes off the heels of an article I brought right at the beginning of the program, which is the polls show that Gen Zers can easily be influenced by an endorsement by Taylor Swift or Beyonce. Either way, maybe it changes their vote or it solidifies their vote, which is sad when you think about these not being any type of political experts, just pop stars. But continuing, one of them is too young to vote, and the other one only graduated high school just a couple of months ago. But Donald Trump has a secret weapon in his bid to reach Gen Z voters. His youngest son, Barron, 18, and the teen's influencer best friend, Beau Loudon, 17. The tech-savvy teens are busily briefing the 78-year-old former president behind the scenes on the new landscape of streamers and YouTube stars with millions of followers. They're now acting as a de facto social media outreach team. Oh, that's interesting. This is coming from the Daily Mail, so take it with as many grains of salt as you would like. Wooing online stars who older aides might have never heard of. It was Barron and Beau who lined up his 90-minute interview last week with Kick influencer Aiden Ross, which was watched live by 500,000 people, or 100 million total listeners if you believe the figures promoted on Trump's Truth Social account. Anyway, I thought that was interesting. Barron, they said, may be a little more active in the campaign. Here's a last-minute comment coming in. Kamala and Timmy, is designed to turn our country into a third-world country. The entire world will be destroyed. Wake up, my friends. Frank, thank you for your honest reporting. Well, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for watching. We do appreciate it. That just about does it. One last update, quick. UNC is bracing as anti-Israel group dubbed Voice for Hamas, yes, condones armed rebellion, quote, by any means necessary. This will be a continued storyline as the beginning of the school year begins on college campuses. And remember, my prediction, could be wrong, that a lot of these protests will come in smaller forms to high schools because it will look like the cool thing to do. Here's a comment from a viewer. Trump is a poor father figure for that boy, meaning Barron Trump. He's in trouble, okay? And I think he'll be fine, but okay. Thank you for that comment. See, we read them all, folks. That is it for today's edition of Frankly Speaking. Thank you to our guests from STICA, the Southern Tier India Cultural Association, telling us about Saturday's India Day here on Marcus Street in Corning. We appreciate them being in on the program. Don't forget, tomorrow, Steuben County Sheriff Jim Allard will be our guest. So get your questions in now, and you can always feel free to comment after the program 24/7 at that number on the bottom of your screen. Have a great day, everyone, and we will see you tomorrow morning, bright and early, starting at 6 a.m. with Frankly Speaking, only on WYDC TV, Big Fox. We will see you tomorrow morning. I look forward to it already. Have a great day, everyone.